Michael Penix getting drafted to the Atlanta Falcons at 8 or whatever, when they just paid Kirk Cousins $130 million guaranteed in free agency literally a few weeks ago, and it is awkward in Atlanta. Now, I saw Penix celebrating with his family, had sweet sunglasses on, and nothing should take away from the night in which his dream come true. He blew both ACLs, both shoulders, still became a top 10 NFL draft pick at quarterback. Congrats to you, Penix.
Yeah, boy, Penix.
Penix did it. Once again, this is not Penix's fault.
No.
This is just like the Jordan Love situation in Green Bay, not Jordan Love's situation. Now, the difference between the Green Bay situation and the Atlanta situation is Green Bay had just got done going to the NFC Championship game.
Correct.
Green Bay had a lot of success before the Jordan Love draft pick and also afterwards. Atlanta hasn't been in the playoffs since like 28-3 game happened or whatever. They stink. They're building a whole new era, whole new coaching staff, whole new everything, and they seemingly use a very valuable, even if you don't want to pick anybody that's going to make your team better this year, you can probably trade that thing and get a lot more if you want to add more pieces. Instead, they pull the trigger on Michael Penix when Kirk Cousins is there, and then Kirk Cousins didn't know it was going to happen. Then there was an awkward give and take between Fontenot and Raheem Morris, who we're big fans of, about talking to Kirk, and, well, we're going to keep that private, his reaction. It was like, okay, yeah, pissed.
Yeah.
That means he's pissed off for good reason. And they make this decision with everybody having a football brain outside of Atlanta going, the hell are they doing? What do you think, Wombo?
Right.
How do we get to this point, and why do you think they ultimately made the decision?
Well, I was the only one quoted in the ESPN article because I was the only one willing to say it on the record. Everybody else hid behind themselves, and we all know who was doing the talking there. But let's go to the concept here.
Yep.
Look, Michael Penix is a good player. That's not the obvious. That's not the conversation here. Michael Penix is a good player. But the job of a general manager is to prepare his team, is to marry the free agent system into the draft. And if you're Terry, Super Bowl winning GM Fontenot, who's won 21 games in 3 years, okay, since he's been in charge, if you're in that job, you know in October and November, having watched Desmond Ridder play, watching Taylor Heineke play, you need a quarterback. And so you're going through all these quarterbacks. Remember, Brett Veach went to Andy Reid and said, we got to get this Patrick Mahomes kid. He's great. He did it in October. So you're doing that. That's part of your job. Your job as the general manager is to look over your team and say, these are the needs. And we've got to marry the free agent system to the draft. You're picking 8th overall. This is the second year in a row the Atlanta Falcons have used a luxury pick at the 8th pick overall. Last year they took Bijan Robinson, really good player. But Algier averaged 5 yards a carry and gained 1,000 yards the year before. Like, they didn't need another back. They needed a defensive 3 technique. This team finished 27th in forcing turnovers. They couldn't get off the field when they need to. They have no pass rush. So now we come to the season.
This team sucks.
Okay? They need a quarterback. All right? So I got no problem if you said in the offseason meetings that we're going to pick the quarterback at 8. We know Michael Penix is a pretty good chance he's going to be there at 8. Right? Why did I have to go to Arthur Blank and say, give me $90 million of your coin and let's go sign Kirk Cousins? Like, why would you do that? You imagine me going to Al Davis and say, hey, Big Al, give me $90 million, let me go sign Kirk Cousins. And, oh, by the way, I'm going to draft Michael Penix in the 8th pick overall. Like, this just smacks at a lack of a plan. This just smacks at not trying to do your job as the general manager, tying things together. Like, and don't come out there at the press conference and said, hey, if Michael has to sit 4 or 5 years, we'd be happy because we're winning. Well, hey, I hate to break the news to you, Terry, but if he's sitting 4 years, you still got to pick up the 5th-year option. And if he hasn't played, are you going to do that? Like, every time the Falcons talk, they dig a hole deeper for themselves.
Okay.
No problem. No problem. Poor Kirk Cousins, he's got a no-trade clause in his contract. He signed a 3-year essentially deal there. Like, he never anticipated this happen, nor did anybody. Because why would you? You just put $90 million.
Lombo, Dan Orlovsky said after sleeping on it, he said he could see why he did it because if they have to transition to another quarterback in 2 years.
Smart. It's smart. A lot of backups.
Lombo? What's wrong?
Year.
I mean, well, first of all, Dan's one of the great team builders of all time. I mean, let's put that out there. Okay, no one can build a team better than Dan. I mean, his math is ridiculous. There's only been 3 receivers that are bust since 2018, and he doesn't count Henry Ruggs because there was an off-the-field incident. Well, hey, Dan, why don't you go tell some owner that you drafted a guy that had off-the-field injury and see how that works out for you. See how long you keep your job.
We'll talk to Dan in the second hour. We will certainly talk to Dan.
Look, here's the thing, Pat. You don't have a lot of money. Say you don't have a lot of money. and you go spend all your money on a second Rolex, can you ever wear 2 Rolexes at the same time? Of course you can't. You can't. You can only wear 1 Rolex. You can only play Kirk Cousins. Like, it makes no sense. You just signed a luxury item, and Big Danny signing off on it. Sure, it makes sense. Of course, he's built multiple Super Bowl winning caliber teams. He understands how to do it. He's promoting drafting wide receivers.
Okay. All
right?
Okay.
Oh, that's a great pick. This is a great pick. Like, at some point, does somebody sit there and say, the Kansas City Chiefs won a Super Bowl with their defense and no receivers and the great quarterback? Right? Does somebody ever say that? The highest paid receivers in the league so far all been picked in the second day. Second round, third round, fourth round. Like, none of this. It's unbelievable. The Colts, your Colts, benefited from this. To get that pass rusher was one of the best picks in the draft. Seattle sits there with Murphy. They get the best 3 technique in the draft.
Wow.
This is 2 years in a row the great Atlanta Falcons franchise has turned down a 3 technique. Now, I can tell you this. You go put Chuck Pagano on. You go tell me how hard it is to find 3 techniques. They just don't show up every day. And you turned them down 2 years in a row, and you call yourself an architect of team building? It's beyond my own comprehension. But you got Danny O on your side, and he's going to come out with another chart to tell you why receivers are
He might come out with another chart next hour. He'll be joining us. And I already told him, like, hey, Dan, you're coming into hostile water whenever you come in here. Because this morning he was up on the shows doing, after thinking on it.
Of course. He's putting out stuff that makes no sense at all. Like, like at some point, you've got to understand the art of team building. For example, okay, they talk the Raider way, okay, and I've been critical of this. Like, does anybody understand the Raider way? There's one man who knows the Raider way. His name's Al Davis. Al Davis, I think Brock Bowers is a really good player. I really do. But they can't block anybody. They don't have any offensive linemen. They've got Colton Miller and then nobody else. And so Al would believe the team is built from offensive and defensive linemen, and that's what he picked. They would have picked Murphy, they would have picked Latua, or he would have picked an offensive tackle. Because you can't get the ball to the tight end. You don't have a quarterback to get. You got Gardner Minshew, and you got nobody who can protect.
Yeah, Gardner Minshew is a Pro Bowler. Let's not forget that. All right, so let's pivot away from the things that are obviously pissing you off, and we can't wait to talk to noted Detroit Lion quarterback Dan Orlovsky in the second out.
Big Danny. Oh, no.
Oh, Big Danny and mixed reviews. Big Danny was the nickname that Michael Lombardi gave you in the first hour here today. He's obviously
I heard he didn't have so many great
disgusted.
No one's a bigger fan of me than his.
Agreed. Yeah, agreed. That's how they look at it. Your haters are your biggest admirers or whatever. But nonetheless, you came out and defended the Atlanta Falcons pick of Michael Penix more so than anybody else that had access to a microphone.
Yeah.
Michael Lombardi obviously would go on to cook you, but he also has feelings about Atlanta because good friend of his, Bill Belichick, with not being top 3. There's a lot cooking into this entire situation. You came out on the defense of the pick. You're the only human that I've encountered that feels that way. Why is that? And are you just doing this to be an asshole on television?
That's a good question.
I'll answer the second. I'm not doing it to be the one, the only one. No.
Oh, okay. That's good to hear.
Hey, there we go.
Right. So a little bit is when Green Bay took Jordan, I was a supporter of that. So because I philosophically believe in that. When the Green Bay model, when the pick happened last night, I was perplexed. I was like, what? And I was trying to make sense of it. And initially, because in the moment, adrenaline, it made no sense to me. Go to bed, think about it a little bit more, wake up. I send out a text to somebody with the emoji eyes like this, like, what? And they responded back to me saying, go ahead, ask the question. So I asked, and, the way it was expressed to me, and I thought about it a little bit before and after hearing the conversation or the explanation. Number one, they had Michael Penix as the number 2 ranked quarterback in this draft, neck and neck with Jaden Daniels. Top 5 on their draft when it comes to player, okay? So they really like the player. Number 2, they think that they're a better football team than 7-10 with Kirk Cousins. They believe that they're a team that's going to contend for the playoffs, be in the playoffs, so they're going to be picking late. And that first-round pick is not going to be enough for them to get up. They experienced that in this draft. All the teams that were trying to get up ahead of them, no one was budging, even with the picks. It wasn't enough to get up. Number 3, they went out for a private workout with Michael Penix, and it was 50 degrees, it was windy out, and everybody that was there walked away saying it felt like they were throwing or watching a workout that was indoors. The ball just jumped off his hands, and they said people that were around Stafford said that They had not seen somebody throw a football like that since Matthew Stafford, or that was the closest to throwing a ball like Matthew Stafford. So they love the player. And also, like, you're not making that pick unless the owner goes, I want that pick.
Didn't look like it.
But you're not doing it. There's no way that Terry Fontenot, the general manager, makes that pick and says, oh, Arthur Blank, by the way, this is what we did.
Dan, everything you're saying is fine and dandy, okay? It is. But whenever you say, like, you like the Jordan Love thing, that Packers team was in the NFC Championship the year before that. So they had success.
Right.
This Atlanta team is not. You said they think they're better than 7-10. Okay. They haven't been in the playoffs in forever. And you listen to Michael Lombardi drop stats. He's like, this guy's got 21 wins in 3 seasons. All of a sudden they're able to waste picks at 8 to not make their team better, but to get at a position that they just paid over $100 million to a guy to start. It just doesn't seem like a set.
But what happens? I get that, but like
2 years, 3 years. What's the plan?
I don't know. I just know this: Atlanta doesn't really have to have a high level of concern, if at all, till 2030 for a quarterback, and that's rare in the NFL.
Kirk gets hurt too with all the backup quarterbacks that happen.
And also, I think the couple things. I've never built a team. But
you did listen. You heard.
No, I had text message here. But okay, you got Michael Penix ranked as, if your organization, you rank Michael Penix as the second best quarterback, top 4 player, and maybe you don't have another player specifically on the defensive side that's in your top 20 in the draft. So everyone's going, well, trade back. Well, what happens if there's no trade up partner? Or what happens if there's no equal trade value? You're not just giving away the 8th selection. And if you value the player that much, and then also this. Raheem Morris was with the Rams for a while. They're notorious for trading away their first-round pick because it's not going to be worth anything because they're going to win a bunch of games. Terry Fontenot was with the New Orleans Saints when they didn't have a plan for quarterback after Drew Brees, and they mired in trying to figure it out. Arthur Blank has been trying to replace Matt Ryan since he left. So, like, there's a lot of people attached to the organization that have been in the quarterback, what are we going to do, purgatory for a while. And so, like, I understand both elements of it. I do. But I completely understand and agree with why Atlanta did it.
Got it. Connor has a question. I mean, if they suck.
Oh, man. What if Kirk struggles, though? Are we going to be calling for Penix?
$130 million?
Probably.
Like, do you create another issue then? I guess then the GM saying, oh, well, we're bad anyway. That's why we need this guy.
Yeah, I think you're also living in the world of what if Kirk sucks? Kirk hasn't sucked in, like,
I'm
ever.
not saying he sucks. Let's say he has a couple, like 3 or 4 games where they're losing.
Which Kirk has.
How people want to do that. Hey, pull him when there's a young guy behind him. Hey, pull him. Put this guy in.
Yeah, I don't think you pull the trigger. I mean, there's a long leash for Kirk Cousins. I don't think you pull the trigger quickly. But if it gets to a point where, all of a sudden Kirk Cousins can't play anymore, you're not in a bad situation.
You look like a genius then.
He's 24, though, too.
I get it. He's 24, but, like, so was the second pick of the draft.
Yeah, but he's going
to
start
right. I understand. Like I said,
he doesn't have $100 million.
Did they pay
quarterback.
Mariota $100 million?
No, I don't think so.
I think it was like $1 million.
Okay.
Okay. And how about Darnold? Because it's like $10 million.
Yeah, up to.
Jacoby up there in New England?
Up to 8.
$8 million. That's a lot. $8 million is good money. Good for him. $180 million contract to a quarterback just 2 months ago.